Tom, we had Dominique Anglade on. She took questions from callers, some of which we're going to play back just after the 5:30 news. Look, every time we've talked about her, I think a lot of us try to basically give her as much benefit of the doubt as we possibly can. I say we, talking as Anglophones here, but I will tell you, based on our conversation today, I think people have just as many questions as they did before she started answering them.
I don't think that that's a fair analysis, to be honest with you. I think that she gave really strong answers on Bill 96, on Bill 40, on Bill 21. I think that she was clear on the notwithstanding clause. It's rare that I disagree with you outright, Aaron, but I'm going to just say I outright disagree with your assessment of her performance.
Okay, well,
I think...
Yeah, no, sorry. Yeah. And listen, that's why we do this, right? I want to have your opinion. Mm-hmm. You heard it. I'm not sure you have, but you did hear it, and I will tell you...
I did hear a good part of it, and our extraordinary... colleague Alex was able to provide me with a summary of the parts that I didn't get.
Great.
But I was, again, listening to the parts that you got to during the newscast. And I just find that a fair assessment of that is that she answered clearly, straight up. It was nicely done. I thought that, some of the stuff that's been hanging out there and that people have had questions about was cleared up. So I'm not sure what was missing for you. I don't think that anybody who's been worried about the Liberal position or Anglade's own positions after hearing the types of things she said today could come away with that feeling. But there you go. That's why it's all kinds to make the world.
And I will tell you that for me, and I'm guessing you're referring to her answers on Bill 40, 21, and 96, and you're right. She was clear because the caller said, hey, wait a sec, why didn't you vote against it? We did vote against. But to me, Tom, I need clarity, not just this is kind of like boilerplate to me. I've heard these same answers over and over again. I think people want to hear more. They want to hear kind of, I hate using the word riled up, but I want to hear a bit more emotion from her than I'm hearing right now. That's why that was a bit disappointing.
Those are two different things. One is substance, one is form. And I don't agree again that people have been hearing this over and over again. You just said, and I agree with you there, when you said, a lot of people didn't know what their positions on 96, 40, and 21 were. And now that she's clarified it, especially with regard to the notwithstanding clause, I think that it's fair. But, I don't want to go to the question of form over substance. So you don't like that there's a lack of passion and she doesn't get riled up. And you heard her whole discussion about what it is to be a woman in politics. Mm-hmm. The minute you show as much passion as a guy does, you get used terms like hysterical thrown back at you. When was the last time you heard a male politician described as being hysterical? These are words that are reserved for women. So it's always a delicate balancing act. But I think that we got to be fair here, give her a fair evaluation and a fair shake on the time, first of all, that you just spent with you. I'm anxious to see if Legault accepts the same invitation. Come on the air for a good substantive interview and take calls from the public. I think that Anglade showed a lot of poise and confidence and strength in doing that today.
Okay. I think the disappointment came out of the gate, though, Tom. We had this issue on Friday where her open letter appeared only in the Journal de Montréal. And if you're trying to connect with Quebecers, then I think that has to be all Quebecers. And it seemed a strange choice to me to not also publish the letter in English in the Montreal Gazette at the same time.
I couldn't agree with you more. I can't understand what possessed her communications people to send out something in French only. It's one thing for a community group or others to say, oh, no, that's not our audience. We're going to send it out in French. That becomes their choice. But this is an election and 900,000 Quebecers happen to have English as their first language. So that would be like shooting yourself in the foot. I didn't get that part. What was her answer to that?
Her answer was weak. Her answer was weak. She agreed that it was an oversight and that they would do better in the future and that she's starting to try to reach out. But, we kind of needed more. We needed to hear, yeah, we blew it, or no, I need those Francophone votes, we need...
No, I think that's... I don't think that that's a starting point for anybody. You don't put something out in French only to get Francophone votes and leave out 900,000 people intentionally. This seems like the type of thing, in effect, as she's... in what you're repeating to me, because as I say, I didn't hear that bit. But, if she's saying straight up, no, we blew it, that's fine,
I'm baffled, though, honestly, Tom, still, because I'm predisposed to like her. As you know how I feel about women in politics, and especially a minority, and she is whip smart and totally qualified, and yet I still feel this, personally trying to connect with her, I feel it doesn't come with any ease.
I understand what you're saying, but are we talking, again, about substance or form? Are we talking about what a person's policies are and what they would do if they were elected? Or are we talking about our perception of the tone that they're using?
Well,
and the way they
to me,
appear?
Tom, why can't it be a little bit of both?
Yeah.
Right? If you're trying to appeal to an audience that you're kind of behind the eight ball already, I think people want you to hear or want to hear you, and again, it's a bad word to use when I say riled up, but when I talk about that passion, I mean in terms of that substance. I know what your policy is. There was nothing new introduced today other than the fact that, apparently they're going to introduce a $2,000 senior tax credit, but the rest of it was the same stuff we've heard all along. It's not resonating.
You and I have heard about this before, and you actually alluded to it earlier. You were saying that there were a whole bunch of the people in the English-speaking community who were under the impression that she wasn't against Bill.
No. I'm not saying no. That's not what. It's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying was the caller we took made it seem as if he factually that they had not voted against those, and she straightened them out and said, "No, we actually have." The problem with Bill 96.
We're saying the same thing.
Yeah, but the problem with Bill 96 remains not that they come out against it. And I asked the question as a follow-up. It's that it took so long for them to come out against Bill 96. I'm not talking about the others, but specifically about that. So, look, we'll agree to disagree.
I've been hold on. I've been tracking this since day one, and you correct me if I'm wrong, and I'll agree with you. But I've heard Dominique Anglade from day one oppose Bill 96, including in a previous interview on CJAD.
Yes.
Oppose Bill 96 because it uses as a peremptory arm the notwithstanding clause. She's been clear on that since the day the thing was introduced.
She has been on that, yes.
Yeah, on notwithstanding, but I'm talking about specifically in the bill. You know, the answer today from her was there were 202 articles in that bill, so that's why we needed time to sort of study it, and that's why only when Dawson came up did she formally come out and say, I'm against Bill 96, never mind the notwithstanding clause. That's what I'm saying.
There are 200 articles, and there have been 200 amendments. So you can't go into a process saying, we're going to sit here in a parliamentary committee, we're going to study this clause by clause, but it doesn't matter what the work we're going to do because nothing's going to change in our opinion. You honestly go forward and you try to make amendments, and you hope that those amendments are going to make the thing better. Mm-hmm. What happened with Bill 96 was the total mess up around the introduction of that mindless proposal to have English CEGEP kids take 3 of their core courses in French. I mean, that was something that came out of nowhere and was not approved at all by Anglade. And that's something that's also been clarified because some people were trying to stick her with that. That was the initiative of other people who decided that they wanted to show that the English-speaking community could walk the talk on support for French. And it's an absolute disaster, a total mess up from A to Z. But it has, come on. I think that she's more than strong enough to take blame for what she does. But this one, you can't lay on Dominique Anglade.
Well, but then again, some people will say, look at the Liberal Party. If this is 2 members who decided on their own to get involved and the leader of the party didn't even know, what does that say about the party?
Well, what it says is more about the parliamentary structure, because I've been going over this with some other people who went through many years in the National Assembly as I did, and we've been exchanging notes on this, just saying this would never have happened because the leader's office, not the political leader's office, not Anglade's office, but also the House leader office, always had people there monitoring everything. You would have never gone forward with something like that without clearing it. And if something comes in unexpectedly from the other side, you say we're going to pause. We'll put this. We're going to suspend the study of this article, and we'll get back to you because you have to check it out politically. Here, the thing that was completely out of whack with any policy ever made was brought in by the two Liberal members who were present with nobody else knowing about it. I mean, you can take responsibility for a lot of things, and I guess ultimately she's responsible for the fact that her office wasn't sitting on the head in that night of the 2 Liberal members who were there. But I guess there are some things that you can't exactly predict, which is seasoned politicians going rogue and coming up with their own proposal that nobody's seen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at least she won't have that dead weight anymore. Like, that's how I'm seeing it. They will be gone. She can hopefully move forward. I commend the initiative hugely. Like, taking calls from listeners is not an easy thing to do. I love that she agreed to do it, and she has agreed to do it again going forward. But I feel like she's still failing to connect. What does she need to do, Tom? What can she do at this point to really connect with people?
Well, honestly, I think that there has to be an objective evaluation of what's on offer. Because if it becomes a question of she doesn't connect, then it becomes a very personalized thing. It has nothing to do about policy or intentions with regard to a future government. It has to do with the individual. Mm-hmm. And then we go right back to her explanations over the weekend that for some people, the fact that it's a woman makes it very difficult for it to move forward. And I guess that there are other personal considerations about Dominique Anglade that make it difficult for some people to go beyond the image and get to the substance. And she lives it every single day. She's lived it her whole life. She's fought against discrimination. She certainly doesn't have any lessons on discrimination and fighting for rights to receive from too many people. Her father was put in jail by the Duvalier regime. She's fought for rights her whole life. Has she learned that a woman in politics, she's not only the first woman to lead the Liberal Party, she's the first woman of a visible minority to hit any party, a major party in Canada. So, I think that at some point, maybe some people look at things that are more superficial and more personal. But I tend to look more at the substance of what's on offer. I look at a woman who's an engineer and an MBA, and I look at the fact that Legault can't get a single infrastructure project off the drawing board, whether it's the REM in the eastern part of Montreal or the tramway in Quebec City or the so-called third link, this tunnel, which is utter baloney that they want to have between Quebec and Lévis. And I say, this is an opportunity for somebody who's actually put together projects over her life, and maybe she should be selling that a little bit more.
And I think you've opened my eyes a little bit, Tom, in so much that I'm like, I think certainly sexism plays a role in all of this too. Like
I think that there's lots of isms here, yeah?
Yeah, indeed.
You'd hope you could have a discussion like this without that even coming to the fore. I hate to think that that's what it's going to come down to. This woman is about to tour the province to try to, in her words, reconnect with Quebecers. So today was an effort to do it here in this city with Anglos. Tom, she's going to go out to the regions and try to reconnect with a group of people, voters, who basically gave the Liberal Party a slap in the face 4 years ago. How's that going to change now? Why do you think it might change?
It's going to be extremely tough for the reasons we just said. Because, this is the most reasonable end of these conversations. And even at that, it's not a walk in the park. So I think that when she goes out to Trois-Rivières to make that announcement, it's a necessary step. She said she wants to have a charter of the regions and explain what a Liberal government would do with regard to the regions. But to quote that great political philosopher, Brian Mulroney, you got to dance with the one that brung you. And I think that Dominique Anglade and her team have got to understand that their core base is the 30 to 40 seats that they can and should be counting on in Montreal and in the greater Montreal area. And then hopefully once they can show momentum and strength there, maybe move that out a little bit. But it's, there are parts of the province that are so wholly owned by the CAQ right now, it becomes a question of where you put your resources. And I don't think that their resources are best put in some of those far-flung regions.
All right, Tom, we're out of time. Thank you. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.
Good to talk to you. Take good care.